Hi, welcome to this episode. In our previous episode, we worked on defining the connection between our PHP code or our application and database management system. So now that we have that connection, it is time to start interacting with our database. One thing we did by creating this connection is to create a kind of a transportation system. So it's like we get transported from our application or our pages to the database management system. So once there, how do we talk to the database itself? The database management system itself does not speak PHP. So it speaks a different language called structured query language. So it means once we get there through our PDO, we need to be able to speak that SQL language. So be it to fetch an article, to delete an article, update an article, there's a language, there's a structured query language we use to be able to do that, and that's the SQL, and this part of the name MySQL. So how do we do that? If we take our case here where we want to fetch the latest articles, this is where we are going to write that query using our connection. But before that, I would like us to update our database a little bit, because our tables does not have all the information required so far for our articles. So previously, when we defined the tables, the articles table, we defined the title, except, content, author, and the dates, but we did not specify a field for the image. So we'll add the cover image somewhere here, add cover. It's a varchar, we can keep it like that. The images, although we would like to keep name short, but we cannot predict, let's just keep it like that, and we save. So we've added the image field. One thing we could also add here is the author's ID. So this will help us to track the author who actually added the article. So it's not part of the plan, the initial plan, but it's a useful information we can add. So it is an ID. So we use the ID here, and we say author ID. So author ID, then it's a big int, and it shouldn't be null. It is important for us to know who actually added the article. So that is done. The second thing I would like us to solve is that we don't have a particular article. So even if we try to fetch any article from our latest, from our code here, we wouldn't get anything because there's nothing. So I will try to add some dummy articles manually in our database. So I will come on the data tab, then click on the plus sign, then it will give me the room to add an article. So I have prepared some dummy articles here. So let me start from this one, which is this. So this is the title. So I'll paste the author. Let me keep it to 1 because we did not link it to the admin's table or any author's table. So let me just specify full name. So what name did we choose? We said author's ID, so that's a challenge. So notice that here we said it is author ID we need, not the author's name. So if we made it an integer, it means we'll have to have another table that contains the authors, their names and their IDs. But for simplicity purposes, I think it's better we change this into a varchar. Straight, we make it varchar, and instead of author's ID, we rather call it author, and then the name. So there's a, okay, I think I made a mistake in the naming of the author's ID table. Instead of author's ID, it should rather be admin ID. So that's what I meant. So admin ID, and here we have the author, which is varchar. So I think we're okay. We're okay. So we can go ahead and enter some content. So we click on the plus, the article title, here it is. So we cannot save because there are some required fields. For the except, I will just pick maybe the first sentence. Let's say up to here. So Jessica something something, the journey. So let's say on the journey through the word of PHP and PDO and so on and up to here. So something like that. Good. So on the journey. All right, so once we are done editing, we can validate the content. Then we pick all the content here and we paste it inside. The author, then we can write the full name. The author we chose is Jessica. I will not use this domain name over there, Jessica O's. Then admin ID, so that's the admin who added it. I will just pick one. The cover will enter img1.jpg. So it's one of the images we already have. All right, great. So we manually added the article here, and you could see this is already tedious to be doing that. You could have your database management system and then your GUI to access your database management system and manage your database and tables, but it becomes really difficult to do as time goes on with these tools, and that's why we usually need the administrative interface like we designed in an application to help us easily introduce articles without having any issue. So if we were using this form, it would have been great and easier to add articles. So I'm just adding this one for our testing purposes, and later on the remaining articles will be added through this form once we get there. So let's go ahead. Once we've added our first article, it means if we prepare any query now and we get we should be able to get an article if things go well. So to do that, we've created our connection file which gives us our connection. So we could say if not, no. If not is no. So remember, if the connection does not happen, the DB connection object could be no. So we don't want to do anything if it is no. So if it is not no, so if the connection to the database was successful, otherwise definitely PDO will throw out an exception and would see it, but wouldn't temper to start anything here as well. So if it is no, we will now do what we call preparing a statement. So we'll now do what is called preparing a statement. Like I said earlier, what PHP does or PDO will do is to carry us there. So it is like, okay, let's say the statement is equals to our PDO connection. Let's use it as the transportation mean to reach our database management system. So then we do now, once we get there, we can prepare a statement, or let's say like a speech. So what speech are we going to give to the database management system? This is the actual query we are making. So which is select. We want to select every single field of the articles. So what I mean by every single field is these columns: the ID, the title, the excerpt, the content, the author. So if I did not want all of them, I could specify by saying, okay, I just want the ID, I want the title. So and it will fetch only these columns. So in our case, we don't want to complicate things. We select everything. So we want all the columns from our table. So we say from what? From articles. So we are selecting these columns from the articles table, and then we would like, once we get them, to order them by the date they were created at. That's the field created at. Remember, if you were to specify the field here, you have to specify the field that you use to order. You have to specify the field you order by. So it means if I was selecting ID here and title, and that's the only thing I need, but I want to sort them by the creation date, I would have to specify ID, title, and then created at as well at this place, so that I can be able to use that order by. So once we get them and we order them by the date created, how do we want to order them? Descending. So the latest published should show on top. And then once that done, we want to limit. Remember, we have a limitation condition at the home page of our site. which limits us to a certain number of articles. In our case here, 3. So we want to limit it to 3 articles only. We don't want to take more. So once we prepared this statement, we are going to present to our database management system. We would like to execute it once we are sure everything is done. So we'll be like, okay, our statement we just prepared, let's take it and let's execute it. So let's execute it. Execute. Great. So once it is executed, so over time, with other statement, you will see that we'll have to enter some parameters, some variables. So in that case, these variables will be passed to the statement during the execution at this place. So in our case, we don't require any particular parameter. It is plain. So then we execute it. Once it is executed, we would like to get what the database management system gave us as a feedback. What did it reply? What is the reply from the database management after we prepared our statement and sent it or executed it? What did we get from the data management system? So we could go ahead and say, okay, for this statement, fetch every response we got from our database. So normally, if everything goes well, our statement was well prepared and respected the rules of the data management system, the data management system should be able to return us some content, and this content should be our 3 articles, and we will arrange them in a variable called articles, so we keep them there. So normally after that done, if I var dump the articles variable, we should be able to get some content at our home page. So it tells me, yes, uncaught error, call to undefined method, PDO execute. Great. So it shows that indeed the request was done successfully, and we can see here we got an array of arrays. So to format it well for you to see, let me echo, and then I'll pre-format it using the pre. So by doing that, you can see it is an array which contains another array. So it shows that this is the first array. It means if we were having more articles, you see that it will fetch it into many of these sub arrays. So it's an array of arrays. So, and this brings us to one of the options we could provide to PDO to specify how PDO fetches our data. How does PDO return it? Does it return it as a list or an array or an object? Right, as a program, as an object. If you are using object-oriented programming, is it going to be an object or an array? So let's say we have specified PDO options, and it should be an array. So this is an option I could set up on my actual PDO connection. I think what I was thinking is the fetching options here. So we see fetch all. By default, fetch all fetches an array. So what I want is to change that behavior. I would like PDO to fetch a different thing. So we can pass that object, which is PDO fetch object. So this tells PDO, okay, I want an array of objects rather. So change those articles into actual objects. So if I will now preview, we could see that it returns an array of objects. So this basically means normally if we go to articles, we say article. So the first article with the index 0 because it's an array. And then initially, if we did not specify this object, we are going to get another array. So to access the article's title, we would have to do title like this. So that's what we will have to do. But as soon as we specify the fetch object as this, so once we fetch the first article, we will now access the element like this, title. So that's the only difference in how we access the actual element articles. So I will keep fetch object. I think we also have fetch ASOC. Yes, fetch as sock. So, and if we do that, let's see what type we get. So you see we also get an array just like the previous one. So I would prefer the object option because it's easier. It allows me to avoid the brackets and then the quotes and so on when we are fetching with arrays. So it's a bit tedious. Otherwise, all is the same. Whatever is more convenient for you is what you use. So once that's done, we have our articles fetched and they are in our articles variable. So we can now go into our index page section where we are displaying the list of articles like this. So all we have to do is go to loop through that array of articles, and for each one of the articles we just have to display the content. So basically what it means is we'll create a PHP section like this here, and we'll say, okay, for each of our articles as an article, so we grab the single article for each one of the articles we go through, then we'll have to print this whole thing. So we'll do print or echo all this, and we don't forget the semicolon, right? And it will repeat it as many times as we have articles in that articles variable. So if we fetch 10, it will do it 10 times. It will loop through the articles 10 times, and for each one of the articles, it will display its content as such. And if you have 20, it will do the same thing for 20 articles. In our case, we fetched 3, but we have only 1 article in our database. So basically, if we do this, we should have just 1 article at the home page of our article, our website. Great. So we have only 1 article, and here we can see we are still having dummy content. We would like to have the actual article title. So normally we'll come here, and then we'll have to concatenate since it is a variable, and then we concatenate by saying, okay, the variable article. Then remember we said we are using the arrow accessor, not the array accessor. So, and then we want the title. So by doing so, we should have a different title. Great. So now we have our article title like that. So this is cool, but I would like to use a cleaner way, because you can imagine the mix-up we have here between the HTML tags and then PHP code is a little bit unclean for me. So what I will do is I will use what we call PHP shorthands. So the shorthand is for the 4" is still the 4". But what you do is in front of it, you add colon and you close the PHP like that, giving space to your HTML to live as normal HTML. So it's like you open PHP here, and then here you can come and close it. So we say, okay, once that's done, we would like to close end for each. We end it here. So it means any PHP in between here is not needed. We still have our normal HTML showing up here. So we can clear this semicolon. Now, now wherever we have variables to show up, instead of us to also have to do plenty of the PHP, no, we can use the PHP echo shorthand, which is this. So, and then we just echo the needed variable, right? Leaving our PHP, our HTML alone stand as normal HTML. So we can also do the same thing for the article image. So at this place, the images are going to live in the images folder. So here we also echo using the echo shorthand. So, and then we echo the cover column. And remember, these are the columns of our table in the database. These are the columns, so the title, the cover, and so on. So once we have the article title, the cover placed, then we are also going to bring in the excerpt. So this is excerpt. And then once we have that, there's no need for the content here. There's no need for the content. So we have the publication date. So we do the same thing. We echo here the publication date. So this is going to be a date. So we'll do it like we'll echo the date function. Then in there we pass it the created. We said publication date, so it is published at, and then here we'll pass it a format. So we want day, d dash month and year, like that, and we want it to be we want this date to be formatted following this syntax. And then we have the author's name, so we also echo it using the shorthand, just like we did here. So we echo it like this, and we say author. Great. So by doing so, we should now have the actual article's content. Great. So we have the title, we have the excerpt. Okay, we have an undefined variable, so this is published on, not at, so published on. Okay, so if we reload, great. So we still have an error. A non-well formatted numeric value encountered. Yes, that is normal because here okay, let me just display the date directly, because it seems we have already formatted it as the date in the database. All right, so we have something like that. Great. So, and at this point you could see already our design breaks because the title is large, and these are the things you usually have to look at when you are designing your website or when you are buying a template. So in most cases a template is designed using some static dummy content, and the spaces left do not necessarily have any plan for whatever content you will bring in once you acquire the template. So it is usually important, and also when you design websites like this, it's very important to test it with various sizes of content. So I'm going to look at it and fix the design, and since you are going to have the source code, you probably also have that fixed. So this is how we can get our articles. So this is an example. This same thing is going to be applied throughout wherever we need to fetch the articles, either from the admin or just by previewing a single article and so on. So here right under it we have the pages to paginate the article. So I wouldn't go on that for now because it's a complex task. So I would like us in the next episode to look at how we can get the click on the article title and then preview the full article on the single page. So thank you for staying around and watching this episode, and if you are enjoying this series so far, kindly consider liking, subscribing and sharing them with your friends and families. See you in my next episode.